Okay, let's just dive right in because this is huge. We're seeing something pretty unprecedented unfolding.
Absolutely.
After months, really, of deadlock, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I mean, this is someone known for resisting outside pressure. He's apparently been forced by the U.S., a unified U.S. front, to apologize to Qatar.
Yeah, politically radioactive apology.
Exactly, and it's tied directly to an Israeli strike in Doha that killed a Qatari serviceman. The sources we're looking at are clear. Without that apology, these new Gaza ceasefire talks, they weren't happening.
Dead in the water. That concession, that apology, it was the non-negotiable key to unlock the door again.
It's a total reset moment, isn't it? When you see a leader like Netanyahu make that kind of public statement about sovereignty, about a military action, wow, the pressure must have been immense.
Unbelievable pressure behind the scenes, you have to assume.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing exactly what we do best, getting into the weeds of this massive 20-point ceasefire proposal that's just emerged. We're going to analyze the extraordinary diplomatic moves that made it possible and look hard at the constraints facing everyone involved.
From Netanyahu's tightrope act.
Right, trying to keep his government together.
To the, frankly, shocking splits happening inside Hamas right now.
This deep dive is really your essential guide to understanding not just the plan itself, but all the high-stakes politics swirling around it.
And it's fascinating because this isn't just aiming for a pause, is it? This framework goes way beyond just stopping the fighting. It's comprehensive, maybe even aggressive. And the whole thing seems to pivot on this moment of, well, rare unified American pressure. Our sources are actually calling it the Trump effect.
Okay, that's the perfect lead into Section 1. After months of stagnation, talks going nowhere. What suddenly created this momentum, this very precarious momentum?
Well, you hit on the Trump effect, and that's definitely central. The incoming U.S. administration's transition team, they worked closely, that's the phrase used, unusual concert with the outgoing Biden administration. So you had this single, unified American voice. And the difference seems to be, according to the sources, much heavier pressure and public threats aimed directly at Netanyahu to get him on board with the framework.
Wow.
This bipartisan present and future unity basically took away Israel's room to maneuver, to stall or play one side against the other.
That kind of unified front during a transition, that's really something. We just don't see that often, especially leveraging future power like this. Why now?
Yeah.
Just for a foreign policy win?
I think it's bigger than that. It seems like a move to show the region that American power is coherent, consistent, no matter who's in the White House. But look, just as vital as leaning on Israel was fixing things with Qatar.
Ah, the mediator.
The essential mediator. Yeah, remember, Qatar actually stopped mediating back in November.
Yeah.
Pulled out.
And that pause was directly because of that Israeli strike in Doha we mentioned at the top, the one on September 9th.
Exactly right. The IDF was targeting Hamas leadership there, but a Qatari security guy was killed in the process. And Doha's reaction wasn't just, we're upset. They called it state terrorism. And crucially, an attack on the principle of mediation itself.
So the channel to Hamas just shut down.
Completely severed. Doha basically said, no apology, no talks, period.
So Netanyahu gets pulled into this three-way call under massive U.S. pressure. What exactly did he have to say? Apologizing for military action is almost unheard of for an Israeli PM.
Yeah, the sources say he had to express deep regret for the missile strike unintentionally killing the Qatari serviceman. But maybe even more significantly, he had to apologize for violating Qatari sovereignty.
That sovereignty point is huge.
It's a massive climb down politically. It just shows you Qatar's leverage and how critical that channel to Hamas's political wing really is.
Yeah.
That apology, it laid the groundwork for this entire new negotiation structure.
Okay, so that sets the stage perfectly. You've got unprecedented U.S. political unity, plus this really significant public apology needed just to get everyone back to even look at a proposal. Let's look at that proposal now, this 20-point plan. It's being called ambitious, sure, but also really controversial because, well, it seems heavily tilted towards Israel's demands.
Oh, it absolutely reads like terms of surrender for Hamas, no question. The sequencing is key. It's designed to deliver Israel's main goal right at the start.
Which is?
The hostages. Section 1 demands the immediate release of all remaining Israeli hostages. The estimate is about 48 people, though tragically intelligence suggests maybe only 20 are still alive.
And they have to be released within What?
A very tight 72-hour window after Israel formally accepts the deal. That's the front-loaded, non-negotiable part.
Okay, so Israel gets its key demand almost immediately. What's the trade-off? What does Israel have to do in return?
They agreed to release 250 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences. That's always a huge sticking point. Plus another 1,700 Palestinians detained since October 7th.
So a significant prisoner exchange.
A very large one, yes. But it's entirely dependent on getting those hostages out first, within that 72 hours.
Yeah.
But honestly, the prisoner exchange, while big, isn't the most controversial part. That comes next.
The future of Hamas itself.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Israel's core demand: complete demilitarization. The plan is blunt. Hamas must dismantle and destroy all military infrastructure, tunnels, rocket factories, weapons caches, everything. And the group is explicitly banned from having any role in governing Gaza moving forward. This isn't just a ceasefire. It's a demand for Hamas to basically dissolve as a military force.
So what happens to the actual Hamas members? There must be tens of thousands. Amnesty, exile.
It offers two tracks. The text says those who commit to peaceful coexistence and fully disarm would get amnesty, allowed to stay in Gaza.
Okay.
But for those who don't accept that or want to leave, the plan offers safe passage, exile basically, to other countries willing to take them. The aim is clearly to break the movement, militarily and politically.
Which logically leads to the governance question. If Hamas is out, who's in? And this is where it gets really wild, right? This proposed international body, the Board of Peace.
Yeah, this is radical stuff. It's essentially proposing an international protectorate to run Gaza temporarily. All the Reconstruction money, ultimate authority, it rests with this Board of Peace.
And the leadership, the sources mention specific names.
They do. Proposed chair, President Donald Trump.
Wow. Okay.
And other international figures would be involved, people like former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair I mentioned.
A sitting or incoming U.S. president sharing an international body governing Gaza. I mean, that's politically explosive. How is that even being framed?
Look, it seems like the ultimate workaround for Netanyahu's domestic problems. His government absolutely refuses to empower the current Palestinian Authority, the PA, right away.
Right, the PA that runs parts of the West Bank.
Yeah, so that the plan explicitly sidelines the PA. They only get control after they complete some undefined sweeping reform program. Who knows how long that would take? Years, probably.
So the Board of Peace is like a temporary, internationally blessed strongman.
Pretty much. It manages the transition, controls the money, and crucially, satisfies Israeli demands not to just hand Gaza over to the current PA leadership.
Okay, so we've got a plan packed with strategic concessions, major political risks, which brings us neatly to the tightropes everyone's walking. Let's start with Netanyahu.
Right. He's playing a very tricky double game here. Internationally, he says yes to the plan, looks cooperative with the U.S., but back home, he immediately starts walking back the details. The plan mentions gradual Israeli withdrawal, but Netanyahu's telling his base, the IDF, the army, will remain in most of the Gaza Strip.
And denying any path to a Palestinian state, even if it's vaguely hinted at?
Completely denies it.
Yeah.
He has to. He's trying to keep Washington happy while stopping his own government from imploding. His far-right partners, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, these guys hold his political fate in their hands.
They're the religious nationalist figures, right? And they could pull the plug anytime.
Instantly. For them, anything short of total victory, the absolute destruction of Hamas forever, is betrayal. They've explicitly said they'll collapse the government, if this deal goes through in a way they don't like.
So Netanyahu accepting the deal is strategic. He's betting Hamas will reject it.
That seems to be the calculation. He accepts knowing, or at least strongly believing, Hamas won't accept the disarmament terms. They're just too harsh from Hamas' perspective.
So if Hamas says no, the blame shifts to them.
Exactly.
And Netanyahu gets a green light from the U.S. to go back in to finish the job, but this time with maximum American backing, because Hamas refused the deal. It's almost a win-win for him, politically, if the deal fails.
Precisely. The pressure then swings entirely onto Hamas, and they're facing an absolutely existential decision. It's tearing them apart internally. And this internal split is happening against the backdrop of just catastrophic suffering in Gaza. Sources are citing over 66,000 dead, confirmed famine in the north. The pressure is immense.
So what are the competing factions within Hamas saying?
Well, you seem to have a pragmatist faction. These guys are apparently focused on the humanitarian disaster. They're leaning towards unconditional approval, just to stop the killing, get aid in, ensure basic survival. They might see the hostages now as more of a liability prolonging the war.
Okay, survival first. And the other side, the hardline faction.
They're digging in their heels on disarmament. They see it as, quote, criminalization of their resistance. For them, this whole deal is a trap.
A trap to achieve politically what Israel couldn't militarily.
Exactly. They see it as surrender. They're demanding major changes, especially cast iron guarantees of a full, unconditional Israeli withdrawal from all of Gaza. Giving up the armed struggle is just unthinkable for them, ideologically.
And into this already intense pressure cooker, President Trump throws a public ultimatum.
Yeah, talk about turning up the heat. It's public, the clock is ticking. Trump said Hamas has 3 to 4 days to say yes.
Yep.
Or else, a very sad end, he warned. He explicitly said if the deal falls apart, Israel gets his administration's full backing to do what you have to do. It forces Hamas into this binary choice right now, with huge consequences if they delay or say no.
It's crucial, I think, to constantly connect this high-level diplomacy, these frameworks drafted in safe rooms, back to the reality on the ground in Gaza. While these talks are happening, what is the actual situation for people there?
The backdrop is just devastating. It's systemic collapse. You need to grasp the scale. We're talking about nearly 90% of the population displaced, almost 2 million people driven from their homes.
Incredible.
There's confirmed famine in the north, catastrophic hunger spreading everywhere else. The healthcare system, it's gone. Hospitals are destroyed or barely functioning because of fighting. Lack of power, lack of supplies. The death toll is horrific. That's the reality against which this whole political chess game is being played. It makes the need for some kind of ceasefire incredibly urgent.
Absolutely. So, given that urgency, but also the complexity of the plan, what are the big potential failure points? Even if they get an initial ceasefire, where could this fall apart during implementation?
Implementation is where deals like this often die. Firstly, all that ambiguity we talked about, the vague language.
Yeah, like security perimeter presence or sweeping reform.
Exactly. That vagueness was probably necessary to get signatures on the paper initially. Both sides can interpret it their way. But down the line, it guarantees disputes over what was actually agreed, especially on things like how fast and how far Israel really withdraws.
Okay, so interpretation fights are likely. What if the deal sort of works, Hamas maybe starts disarming, but the new governance, this board of peace, isn't ready or fails to establish control? What's the risk then?
The nightmare scenario is what some analysts call Somalization, utter chaos. If Hamas is weakened or dismantled, but there's no legitimate, effective governing body ready to step in immediately with international backing, Gaza could just fragment, ruled by competing warlords, maybe powerful clans, local militias fighting over resources, over aid distribution. It could become completely ungovernable if that board of peace and the planned international stabilization force can't get a grip quickly.
So it really sounds like this whole initiative, despite the ambitious framework, is fundamentally about stopping the bleeding now, getting hostages out, rather than solving the long-term conflict.
I think that's the most accurate way to see it, yes. It's conflict management at its core. It's a mechanism to halt the immediate fighting, secure the release of hostages. But it's not really a blueprint for genuine conflict resolution. Why? Because it doesn't offer a credible political horizon for the Palestinians. The root causes of the conflict, the issues that drove the resistance, they're still there, completely unaddressed.
Okay, so here's the final thought we want to leave you with today. We're seeing this unprecedented international consensus behind a very aggressive plan, one that's clearly designed to end Hamas's rule. Does that sheer weight of international will, particularly from the U.S., create enough force to actually impose a lasting solution this time? Or does the very nature of this deal, viewed by many on the ground as simply a surrender plan, just deepen the cynicism and guarantee future conflict, perhaps replacing one form of control with another? You've been listening to The Deep Dive, where we dive into the sources to make sense of complex global events. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.